Europa Universalis launches big, Football Manager 26 scores an own goal, and Falling Frontier resurfaces on Steam after 2 silent years. This is the strategy gaming news you need to know this week. Falling Frontier has slipped again, this time till 2026, and the developer finally explained why on Steam. The new post reads like a technical report, a full breakdown of art, combat, tools and lore, all framed around one point. They're still building, and now the systems finally talk to each other. It's the first Steam update in 2 years. The last one from 2023 only announced a delay to 2025. The studio hasn't been completely dark. There's an active Discord server, but Steam is where most people look, and 2 years of silence there reads like abandonment, whether that's fair or not. This update answers that perception with engineering work instead of excuses. They've rebuilt ship shaders, unified colour logic, and cut draw cores by 60% using material property blocks. That's the kind of optimisation you do when you're preparing for scale, not a trailer. Combat has shifted from arcade volleys to simulated barrages where ships throw thousands of rounds a minute and stations tear apart through physics-driven explosions. Planets are now fully 3D. Nebulae use mesh-driven volumetrics. The scenario creator will expose these tools so players can build and recolour factions without mod surgery. The lore work ties into mechanics. The Devar jump drive makes gravity a tactical constraint. Ships can't jump inside planetary exclusion zones and rely on helium-3 refueling networks that double as combat choke points. That kind of logistical vulnerability is the backbone of a good operational RTS. Slow, deliberate, and punishing. Supply lines become targets, fuel depots become strategic objectives. Reconnaissance stops being optional when you can't see through a stellar exclusion zone. So the question isn't whether this is in development hell, it's whether this is the grind phase before something solid. Everything described here sounds like integration work, not panic work. If a demo arrives next year and manages what's written, the conversation moves from will it launch to does the simulation justify the wait? For now, it's alive, slower than expected, but still building towards the same goal. An RTS where reconnaissance, fuel and attrition decide who wins. And yes, it's another delay announcement, but at least this one came with receipts. If you like this sort of strategy gaming content and want to see more, make sure to hit subscribe. Subscribers, likes, comments and shares all help to please the algorithm gods and get the Critical Moves message out there to other strategy gaming fans. Paradox finally released Europa Universalis V, and for once the numbers justify the ambition. 77,000 concurrent players on Steam, a franchise record, and around 78% positive reviews after the first week. That's a strong debut for a game that makes zero concessions to accessibility. EU5 ditches the old monarch point model for interlocking economic, political and population systems. The result is slower, crunchier and borderline overwhelming, but that's deliberate. Paradox has leaned all the way into simulation. The UI struggles to keep up, but the intent is clear. This is for players who'd rather manage power blocks and estate influence than paint maps. Historian Brett Devereaux's first look calls it a game about the point where people and polity meet, which is exactly right. It's less about states acting on the world and more about how internal politics and class power shape those states. Your nobility can block reforms, your merchant class can strangle your economy if you mismanage their interests. Your religious establishment can destabilise entire regions if you push too hard against their privileges. The simulation runs deeper than previous entries, which means the feedback loops take longer to understand and the consequences of mistakes take longer to surface. It's also a heavy lift for newcomers. If Paradox keeps this complexity curve, they'll need a new entry-level series soon because EU5 is not that. The tutorial does what it can, but there's no gentle on-ramp here. You're managing population segments, trade nodes, estate power, diplomatic relations, and military logistics from hour one. The game trusts you to figure it out, which works for the audience that's been asking for exactly this kind of depth, but it's going to filter out anyone hoping for a more forgiving introduction to grand strategy. The technical side holds up better than expected, performance is stable, the maps run clean, and the save load times are reasonable given the simulation scope. Paradox clearly learned from their recent rough launches. This one landed without the kind of catastrophic bugs that plagued Victoria 3 or Imperator Rome at release. The patches will come, they always do, but the foundation is solid enough that players can trust the systems to work while they're learning them. Football Manager 26 is out across PC, consoles and mobile, and the reaction is rough. Steam reviews are mostly negative, performance issues, missing assets, stripped back features, and what players call a sterile presentation. This is the first Football Manager built on Unity, which should have been a clean technical reset. Instead, it exposed how brittle the design has become after 2 decades of iteration. Sports Interactive tried to modernise and cross-platform the series, but in doing so they diluted the PC edition, the one that built the audience. Unity isn't the villain here, the problem is direction. FM26 wants to be the same game everywhere, and it ends up weaker everywhere instead. The new match engine feels sterile, the UX lost depth to streamlining, long-time players feel pushed towards mobile convenience. When your community describes the management sim as lifeless, that's not a patch issue, it's philosophy. The complaints aren't about missing features in isolation, they're about a design that no longer respects the audience's investment in complexity. FM's appeal has always been the ridiculous granularity, the ability to micromanage training schedules and scouting networks, and squad morale down to individual conversations. FM26 sands off those edges to make room for console controllers and mobile touch interfaces, and the result is a game that feels designed for no one in particular. Performance is another disaster. Frame rate drops during matches, long load times between menus, crashes when simulating large leagues. The Unity migration was supposed to fix this kind of thing, but it seems like Sports Interactive underestimated how much technical debt they were carrying. The engine change exposed problems that were papered over in the old build, and now they're scrambling to patch a foundation that wasn't ready for release. The business angle is obvious. Too many SKUs, too much dependence on Game Pass and Netflix licensing, too much pressure to monetize across platforms. But the design failure is the bigger problem. FM26 feels like a game built by a studio that stopped trusting its audience, that thought accessibility meant dumbing down instead of better tutorials. The hardcore fans who kept the series alive for 2 decades don't need a simpler game, they just need a better one. And now for the headlines. On November the 15th, Battlestar Galactica Deadlock disappears from sale. You'll still own it if you bought it, but after that it's gone. With a quiet reminder that digital preservation depends on licensing lawyers, not players. The fleet survives, but only for those already on board. Broken Arrow is still struggling to get things right. Last week we talked about the introduction of Easy Anti-Cheat. That patch broke the game entirely. Players can't launch unless they reinstall Easy Anti-Cheat manually through command prompts with a 32-character code. It feels like tech support from 1998, complete with no output confirmation. Developers say a fix is coming soon. Creative Assembly will release Tides of Torment on December the 4th, adding 3 new legendary lords for High Elves, Slaanesh and Norska. It launches alongside patch 7 and, more importantly, the studio's next project announcement. That date will decide whether they've started to rebuild trust or if the community keeps walking. The DLC itself looks competent, fresh units, some campaign tweaks, but everyone's waiting to see what follows. If December's reveal is another Warhammer stopgap, the studio's reputation problem continues. Creative Assembly has spent the last year trying to recover from Hyena's failure and the layoffs that followed. This announcement will either signal a return to form or confirm that the studio is still trying to figure out what it wants to be. On Friday's podcast episode, Football Manager fanatics New Boy Sid and Old Sweat Joe will try to understand what Sports Interactive got wrong and if FM26 deserved its mostly negative Steam rating. I'm looking forward to that one. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. Goodbye.